So today I wanted to talk about the future of Star Wars. No, I'm not talking about the future of the franchise in general, but I'm specifically talking about the actual future of the Star Wars timeline. So if you didn't know, last April, after a series of announcing movies and canceling movies, with honestly some of the worst management I've seen from a studio ever, Lucasfilm finally announced what their next slate of Star Wars films would be. And the announcement that seemed to generate the most buzz was the announcement that Rey would be returning in a new Star Wars film set after Episode 9 where she would be rebuilding the Jedi Order. Now, while this is further proof that Hollywood cannot end a story for the life of them, this still is an undeniably exciting direction to take Star Wars. For years I've wanted to see Star Wars continue to push into the future and introduce new ideas and concepts, rather than solely rely on what's been established. I'm not saying I don't want to see them continue to flesh out the ideas that have been established, because in a lot of ways I think they've done a great job of that. For example, we're currently in the final season of Star Wars The Bad Batch, and that show is continuing to flesh out the transition from clone troopers to stormtroopers, as well as setting up Palpatine's contingency plan in the sequel trilogy. These feel like necessary aspects of Star Wars that should be expanded on. I mean, for me personally, them saying somehow Palpatine returned was enough for me to know everything I needed to know about Palpatine surviving being thrown down a reactor shaft, but hey, I'll take this. But even with them expanding on what's been established, I've always just been more infatuated by the thought of new Star Wars stories set years after the Skywalker saga or years before, which by the way, we're getting a movie about that too. But then there comes the question, what exactly happens in this new film? So I think a good place to start on the speculation side of things is to talk about what we already know so far about the film. Something in particular that has me very curious is the fact that the film is set 15 years after the rise of Skywalker. I mean, why exactly would it take Rey 15 years to start rebuilding the Order? This feels like a very deliberate choice, and I think there has to be a reason for why it's taken this long. And I think perhaps why it's been 15 years is because Rey has an offspring. I wouldn't be surprised at all if this film was the start of a new saga of Star Wars films. I remember talking about The Rise of Skywalker the night, that I'd seen it for the first time, and speculated that Rey taking the Skywalker name would be the start of sort of a new Skywalker saga, a new set of films pushing Star Wars forward. We'd essentially be getting all these films focusing on a new bloodline of Skywalkers. I mean, why else would Rey take this long to re-establish the Order, other than to raise her own kid? Now, I'm not saying this is another Shimmy Skywalker situation where he just gets, born out of the Force or something. I certainly hope not, that would be extremely derivative. And I also don't think it's some weird stuff involving Ben Solo's Force Ghost either. I think we're gonna have to wait until closer to the film's release to know who the actual father is. Now, as for any familiar characters who would be part of Rey's new Jedi Order, there's a lot of candidates. Now, I am just going to say right off the bat, I do not expect Grogu, Ezra Bridger, or Ahsoka Tano to appear, at least in this film, as the Mandoverse is currently ongoing, and I don't think they want to spoil the fates of these characters. I wouldn't be surprised if we see an older Broom Boy from the end of The Last Jedi. I think it's possible we could see an older Cal Kestis, but I think that would all depend on when the third and probably final Jedi game would be coming out. Obviously, the character who feels like he's basically guaranteed to be part of Rey's Jedi Order is Finn. And we actually have semi-canon evidence that suggests that Finn is training under Rey following Episode 9 where he was set up to be Force sensitive. And that is the LEGO Specials. Now I know what you're thinking. The LEGO Specials can't be canon, and you're right. Obviously, Rey did not fight Darth Vader jumping through time portals on Life Day. But the LEGO creators have said in the past that a lot of these LEGO Specials are over-comedic parodies of actual canon events. So sure, Rey did not fight Darth Vader jumping through time portals on Life Day, but the aspect of the holiday special that involves Rey training Finn to be a Jedi could very well be canon. And the LEGO Star Wars Summer Vacation special gives us some really juicy details about what the characters are up to post-Episode 9. It is said that Rey is searching through Jedi temples, probably searching for a place to establish the Order again. It could possibly be on this journey where she meets the father of her offspring. Poe Dameron is an interesting case because he is said to be training a new generation of X-Wing pilots. And that sounds a lot like what the plot of the Rogue Squadron movie was supposed to be. If you didn't know, Rogue Squadron was actually supposed to be the next Star Wars movie and was actually supposed to release last year, but a series of creative differences led the project to be ultimately indefinitely delayed. It has been confirmed that Lucasfilm is still trying to figure out what to do with the project and possibly even make it into a Disney Plus series, but either way, it doesn't sound like it's going to have as much to do with the next series of post-Episode 9 films than initially intended. As a matter of fact, I think this project will be taking place a lot closer to Episode 9 than 15 years later. And Finn is said to be searching for others like him, more Force sensitives to be a part of the Order. I think it also needs to be taken into consideration what the state of the galaxy looks like by the time of this film. I do believe that similar to the Empire, the First Order is not gone, at least not right after Episode 9. I personally found it really odd that the First Order didn't really have much of a presence at all in the final battle of Episode 9. Like, we basically just hear a line from Finn that people are rising up all over the galaxy, and then we see a few Star Destroyers crashing. There have to be a number of worlds where the First Order has such a strong presence that even an uprising would be suppressed pretty quickly. And just because all those ships came in to help the Resistance at the Battle of Exegol does not mean that all of those people have signed on to be part of a full-fledged military. So both the First Order and the Resistance would not be in the best state following the events of the Rise of Skywalker. However, the Resistance has a few clear advantages. It's pretty obvious that the people of the galaxy, the citizens, are for the most part on the side of the Resistance, and the First Order lacks a strong leader to unite their forces. It was figures like Grand Admiral Thrawn and Supreme Leader Snoke that helped the Empire survive and evolve into the First Order. So in other words, I do think that the First Order's toast. Now, I think the fate of the First Order could be covered in one of two ways. Rogue Squadron was actually rumored to be about some of the final First Order forces, so I think if the First Order has a presence in any of the other films, I think it would be there. And that would essentially be the final battle with the First Order. I could also imagine this being covered in a series of books. Before each of the sequel trilogy films came out, there'd be like a Journey to The Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker series of books, where we'd essentially get more context going into the film. That was especially helpful for The Force Awakens, but also for The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, we'd get books about certain elements of characters, or new characters, new locations, new settings. And this would help give us a better idea of where exactly everything is at by the next film. So again, I think the fall of the First Order will be covered in either the Rogue Squadron film or the Rogue Squadron series, or we're going to get a bunch of books about it. So I do not think the First Order will play much of, if any, role in the new Jedi Order film. And honestly, that excites me even more because I personally loved the First Order. I thought they were a fantastic threat, and I really liked seeing the evolution of the Empire. But I really think it's time for Star Wars to move past having our characters be chased by TIE fighters and fighting stormtroopers. I would actually be happier yet if the Sith don't even play any role in this film. The Rise of Skywalker basically gives us all of the Jedi versus all of the Sith with Rey and Palpatine. I like that as the definitive end of the Sith. And now we can move forward, come up with this entirely new enemy for the heroes to, go up against. I mean, you can draw some inspiration from like all the different other threats in the Star Wars galaxy that are from Star Wars Legends, or you could just do something completely new, and I'd honestly be down for that. Basically, the bottom line is give us something new that makes us feel that there is a genuine threat. So preferably don't bring back the Sith, and for the love of God, don't do an Empire 3.0. So yeah, that's basically all I have to say for now. We've got some details and theories for the timeline of the film. We've got some interesting candidates for Rey's Jedi Order, and let's be honest, most of them are going to be new characters. And it sounds like we're most likely going to be getting a completely new threat, which is something I think Star Wars fans have been waiting to see for a long time.